with our agenda. So first of all, let me just quick roll check here, and I've certified this. But anyway, Ms. Brittany Webb,
Present.
Dr. David Smith,
Present.
Dr. Daryl Gaines,
Present.
Dr. Michael Fitch. I'll just go down the list.
Always doesn't agree with that either.
And David Weird, I'm present as well. So we do certify a quorum here. And do we have any introductions from the audience that need to be made at this time? Okay, nothing, no one standing forward to that. We'll move on to our next agenda item, would be approving our minutes from February the 22nd. And those have, you've had a chance to go over those. Anything there that of concern or that needs an edit?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
No, sir.
Nothing's mentioned, so do I have a motion to accept?
Motion.
Mr. Gaines, I'll get this straight. Mr. Gaines made the motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Fitch seconded that. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed saying nay. Okay, that passes unanimously, and I will sign those for the record. Okay. No one's given me a public comment form that anybody signed in. No one asked to be recognized. Is there any public comment, just so that I have that documented? None stated, therefore we'll move on to staff reports from the executive office.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Bill is out and Brian is out as well, so today you just get me. Yes, my name.
Make that noted, we'll probably get a lot more accomplished then.
Mary Winston, I'm going to be making the executive report today. I want to say, first of all, thank everyone so much for the work that you guys did on the rules. Hard work with everyone that we have normally as our older programs and our newer programs, and the change and everything. Everyone's been fantastic. You were very dedicated, and all the work you've done, and the commission unanimously approved the rules that you proposed, save for one change. It wasn't an issue of standard of care, and in the interest of being in line with the national standard of BOC, they went with 100% online for CE possibility. They did take into consideration all concerns about the high school and the budgets and things like that, and just in trying to keep in line with the standards, that is where they moved forward. But I did want to let you guys know that. Also, your conference in July, Brian will be attending that conference, so you guys can educate him further on what exactly you do and how we can better help you with the agency.
SWATA, and as opposed to just educating him, and I can have direct communication with him. The biggest thing that I want him to kind of bring to that meeting is that just the kind of the an overview of how this agency is going to operate, the different entities, the various divisions within TDLR versus the previous operations or current operations of DSHS. And I just want our membership, that's the largest meeting of the stakeholders within our state. I just want them to be able to hear the procedures as we move forward to transition in October, the expected procedures that they're going to see, whether it's renewals, whether it's change of address, whether it's examination, all of those types of things. I really want him to cover, those kind of items. And I'll be there to moderate the meeting and introduce him.
Wonderful.
But that's kind of what we're looking for.
Wonderful. We have had someone from the agency go to as many conferences as possible, and we will continue. We actually had Charlotte Melder from Enforcement, myself, and Brian attended the Midwives Conference earlier this month, did a presentation, learned several things, alleviated some of their concerns, and educated them on the TDLR process.
Right.
And they educated us on showing some videos that were alarming, but very educational.
Right.
So it was a good process, and I think the athletic trainer, SWATA, won't be as surprising as watching a video on childbirth.
We hope not.
We hope not. So
Well,
I think it'll be
anyway,
great.
The other thing that, and traditionally, there's some breakout meetings, but we've requested, and SWATA has given us a specific time window this year, actually 2 times within that day to present, to try to get the information. You know, normally we give a report during the TSATA meeting, which is the breakout meeting within SWATA, but because of time, in lieu of time and things, and I think the interest in this program this year, we'll do that. Another thing to kind of put on the radar, I would say, in the future would be, and DSHS was great about this, in which Stuart Myrick came, but they actually had a booth in the exhibit hall for people to come by, pick up copies of the rules, pick up any questions
that's a good
that they
idea.
might have, and things like that. I think there is a small exhibitor's fee. I think it's approximately 300.
We've already reserved it.
Okay, well, SWATA, DSHS has picked it up, obviously our transition, but moving forward, something we would probably want to make sure we get in the budget, because I think it's a great presence to have. And a
Wonderful.
lot of people stopped by and visited with Stuart, and I try to make some time in the booth as well, too, so.
Wonderful. Stuart will be attending this year as well? Okay, wonderful, great, thank you.
Okay, I'm sorry to interrupt your,
Oh, no, that's very helpful knowledge, and you're getting on public record what you expect from Brian at that conference.
exactly.
And from
Hopefully he's
TVLR.
watching somewhere.
Or he will watch it, he will play it back.
Okay,
And
go
I'll
ahead.
say, this is what the presiding officer has instructed you to do, sir. So, look, in all due respect to my boss, yes. So in that vein, we're continuing to work on the strategic plan. We've been working on that diligently internally as well. I don't know that any of you guys were able to attend any of the external strategic planning. We went to several cities all over the state of Texas. The public had a chance to come in to speak, practitioners, just to come and let us know what we're doing well, what we could do better, what change could they make if they were king, queen, or in my session, I said dictator for the day. What would you implement? And where do you see this in 5 years? Where do you see yourself? Where do you see the profession? What changes will affect you in 5 years? We have posted those public comments on our website, so anyone can take a look and see kind of what the public is thinking on the different programs and where we're going for the future. Next, I want to talk about some personnel changes. Within executive office, the commission has accepted the resignation letter of Bill Kuntz, effective August 31st. Through all of the agency's weeping and gnashing of the teeth, we know that we have to give him that. We don't want to, but we have to. They've also nominated and accepted and appointed, selected Brian Francis as the new director effective September 1. So things will continue to go on in the same way that we have experienced the transition. We've had a lot of transition, but this should help the smoothness continue as we move towards October 3rd and our actual full turnover date. So there shouldn't be any hiccups along the way, and so that was a great call, we think. Do want to tell you that we know you discussed scheduling your next meeting, which we'll talk about near the end of the meeting for September, but as the session rolls around, there will not be as many meetings at that time for advisory boards. It's not prohibited, it's just that things are up in the air. That's the time where our legislators draft new statutes and things that may affect you. We always post, we do a bill follow on our website, and we keep you updated as much as possible if anything is relating to your program aside from the website. But your meetings right after the session may pick up because, depending on what the legislature does during the session. But we did want to let you know, we know that school's still in at that time, and we don't want to impose on your schedules when we're still up in the air and waiting on the ledge to move forward with their session. I don't think I have anything else, so we want to move forward to the next report.
Do we have a member of the compliance staff here and ready to give a report?
Okay, I do know that the Director for Compliance is out of town, George Ferry, and we all know that, I'm sorry, this agenda has placeholders
Right, I
just in
understand.
case.
I understand.
So I don't think George set anyone aside to have any presentations today. So I think, Mr. Ware, we can probably move forward.
Just note, the compliance did send us a report that's in this, and it's not any, if you'll notice there, item E2. So, anyway, it looks like they've selected Stephen Mills from the department, and we've worked with Stephen before, previous board, to oversee staff and operations of the new section. He'll begin on June 1st. And then there's a compliance staff, they're also going to be scheduled to attend SWATA. I think that's about it. So, okay. So we'll move forward to the is there anyone from the education and examination report? Okay.
Good morning, Chairman, Advisory Board members. My name is Rebecca Armas. I'm with the Education Examination Division. I'm here to give you our report this morning. I wanted to just go over a few things. To point out first on, I guess it would be your second page, the statistics for the exams. That's just kind of an example of what you're going to be seeing from us. We'll provide you the pass and the fail for both written and practical. They won't be combined together. It'll be separate, so you'll be able to see them individually by month and by quarter. So if you ever have any questions on that, after any meetings or anything, we will be able to, assist you with that. We do plan on being, either myself or Ray will attend SWATAs to answer any questions regarding the examination that anyone will have. And on that note, we are having our very first subject matter expert group to meet to go over the exam in July. The purpose of this is just to kind of ease it in to our third-party vendor, which is PSI, who will be administering these exams, and just to make it as painless as possible. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel or anything. We're going to keep it, on task so that there aren't any disruptions to the students taking these exams. We're going to be meeting for a few days to go over written and practical, and this is just the first step. We'll be having these meetings a little more often just to go over it, because that's just what we do. We will review the exam 2, maybe 3 times per year, depending on the volume. Another thing we also have, we've got a couple of members that we added to our staff. We have Barbara Francis Mendieta Pringle and Jerry Gonzalez. We added Jerry Gonzalez from DSHS. Some of you may know him. He's assisted with the practical examination administrations. He brings to us a wealth of knowledge from that department, and we look forward to working with him. And that is all I have.
A couple of other reports that I'm going to request that you guys provide to the board as well, and that is a breakdown of the various methods, the pass-fail rates. And if you're not familiar with those reports, I know Stuart can help you get those and get copies of those. The other thing that we would like to see is a breakdown of the pass-fail rates by the universities that offer internship programs.
Mm-hmm.
That is very good information for us to be able to see and see trends of successes versus failures.
Sure.
So if you guys, as you provide that, and again, Stuart can show you copies of those. I don't have any of those here with me.
No, and just to kind of give you an example, we currently have something similar
Okay.
to that, that we provide the cosmetology and barbering industry.
Okay.
They do it by school and
Okay.
where they rank among the state means. So I'm pretty,
Okay,
it's definitely something that we can look into for you.
perfect.
Can I ask some questions about, it says statistics for all exams. What is ACR?
That's our air conditioning, refrigeration,
And
HVAC.
AUC
Auctioneers,
and PR?
barber, yes, yes. Those are
So-
just examples of some of the examinations that we offer. It's just how it would be broken down for you as well.
So in the future, it'll be athletic training?
Mhm.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Any other questions, board members? Okay, thank you. All right, let's see here. Enforcement Division, anyone from Enforcement?
Morning, Mr. Chair. Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Ken Sharp. I'm with the Enforcement Division. And I probably have the briefest presentation of all because I don't have anything for you. I know you did get a written report. I presumably you got that. And if you have any questions on that, or if you have any other questions about in the Enforcement Division, I'll sure be available to answer those.
Okay, one of the things that I think that we're going to need to make sure that we bring over, we are processing through a few cases that will probably have some enforcement, some punishment things that are be coming over from DSHS. And I think just making sure that there's that seamless transition so that punishments or anything like that is levied there will follow through and no one slips through the cracks on that. So I think that's my biggest concern, as we move and work with this division.
Well, Stuart had that concern also, and he and I talked about
Okay,
that a
good.
little bit. And we made sure, we made it a point to make sure that we do have that seamless transition, that we'll pick up whatever needs to be picked up and take it wherever it needs to be taken. We're not going to let anything drop or slip through the cracks.
Perfect. Okay. Anything else from Enforcement? Board, anybody? Okay. Moving on along here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Licensing Division.
Good morning. My name is Dee Dee McEachern. I'm the Director of Licensing at TDOR, and I want to introduce you to Leonard Rivas. We hired him from the Department of State Health Services as the new manager of the licensing team that'll process these license applications. So we are heavily involved in training, obviously in hiring. We have been going and will be going over there every Tuesday and Thursday afternoon to learn how to process license applications and figure out which employees we want to steal down the road. So we are working with that. We're working with Stuart, and he's training us on what to do and how to do it, and everything seems to be going really well there. Leonard comes to us with 22 years in licensing at the Department of State Health Services, so he's been there, done most of it. So he's got some great experience, not only with working with all the different programs, but also in working with the licensing software that we're going to be using and bringing over as well.
I think the biggest thing in this area that I want to, kind of have on the record is that, when we go through and we're utilizing or working through the internship program processes, I think there's some traditional red flags to where some people have tried to submit some things through application that are not appropriate, and some things that I think just history and training. And so I really encourage you to visit a lot with Stuart, because he does have a really good history in identifying those things.
Absolutely.
Because again, it does take some judgment. It does take, because every one of them doesn't just come in a nice cookie cutter box format and you just check off. So some of those things will come in. If you get someone that turns in 1,000 hours in a semester, there should be a red light that goes off and says
Definitely.
that's not physically possible.
Yeah.
So, just things like that, some various coursework that they might submit to know that there needs to be, a red flag and some questions asked to whether you call upon, a board member, or you call upon, someone else to let's just make sure, because you guys are saddled with the task of certifying these applicants to sit for the exam. So you are standing in that gap, and we want to make very, very sure that there's not someone getting through that gap that hasn't met the qualifications that we've had set forth in our statutes. So,
Absolutely.
anything else, board?
I think also just, expediency of licensure is, correct me if I'm wrong, I mean, one of the things that all of the young guys, as soon as they get out and they're qualified, they want to get that license as soon as possible. And a lot of the the guys that are applying from other states that are VOC certified,
Mhm.
you know, there's a huge demand for athletic trainers in the state. And getting them in, getting them licensed, and putting them to work is kind of our job, so.
Absolutely.
We trust
Yeah.
y'all can.
We want that the highest priority, yes, getting those folks licensed so they can get to work.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I totally echo that. I think there probably needs to be that, that why in the road where, when an application comes in, if it is coming in from a person that's been BOC certified since '04, that there is an expediency route. To where
Absolutely.
we're talking about being able to get at least an email to these individuals telling them a license number. And I think we need to, our goal needs to be, hours, not days or weeks. And the
Sure.
weeks are not, because it's pretty, it's a few boxes to check, but it should happen pretty fast so that we can, again, because some of these people may be being held on employment because of that.
Absolutely.
So I think that's a goal to have. So,
We agree.
We want athletic trainers all over the country to know that Texas is a good place to come to work.
Good, good, good. We agree.
Okay, anything else, board? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, Stuart, they have a spot here on the agenda for you. I've been promoting you here through dialogue, so that you got your spot.
David, we've talked about this. You can't be spreading my name around like this, okay? It's bad enough I get calls from Brian. No, I'm just kidding.
I understand.
Stuart Myrick, Department of State Health Services, Program Director for the Texas Advisory Board of Athletic Trainers. A couple updates. We did hold our last round of exams on April 24th in Fort Worth, Houston, San Antonio, Lubbock. We had approximately 113 candidates take the exam. Those candidates have since been notified of their results. Those that passed and were qualified have been licensed. Those that have passed and needed a document, whether it was transcript or something like that, they've been notified, and we've actually got a few of those back already, and I think those have been licensed already. Those that did not pass, we have notified them of their results and let them know that the next exam date is pending. The DSHS attached board will be meeting on June 27th to wrap up a couple of disciplinary actions that need to be taken care of by the board. Since the statute does not allow administrative approval, those have to be approved by the board. So we will be convening the Advisory Board of Athletic Trainers at that day to consider those. Mentioned SWATA, Southwest Athletic Trainers Association, will be meeting July 20th through the 22nd. I have already reserved a booth for myself as well as those from TDLR that will be there. I will be there as well to kind of provide that continuity. Not to mention, I still have the Old Man book I've got to bring. For those of you who don't know, the Old Man book, I have the original, what I like to call the original licensing database, which was a ledger book. It was kept in the desk of Alan Eggert at the Rice Athletic Office back when licensing first started in 1974, which has the first 1,500 licenses that were issued in the state of Texas. And in fact, I know at least one person sitting up here, I'm not going to mention any names, but his initials are David Weir, is in that book. But anyway, and that's always a fun thing at our booth. We put that out so that, first of all, those that are in the book come over and see it. Second of all, their students come over and get to make fun of them. So it's always a good time. And that's, in SWATA is one of my favorite events to go to all the time. They're some of the best people in the world, and I love talking to them, get the stories, and in interacting with the athletic trainers that provide such great services to the athletes of the state of Texas. So, and I'll be there to coach Brian on make sure that when Al Wilson walks up to him, for example, that he says sir. So, other than that, there's not a whole lot. We're still chugging along best we can with albeit with some staff shortages and stuff, but we're chugging along best we can. I have worked with Leonard on several occasions, and we were together this past Thursday training on athletic trainer license application processing. So, and that will continue, and of course, I will make myself available to any and all TDLR staff for anything regarding licensing of athletic trainers in the state of Texas.
One of the things, Stuart, and I probably need to bring back up licensing the people that want to address, I think the biggest, or examination individuals, I want to try to get as much information out, and I don't know if it needs to be concurrent on both websites. There are some individuals that fail the exam and know that their structure is going to be changing a little bit. And so I know there's a little bit of apprehension as to how this is going to affect them. They may just need to take one part. I've already heard from one that's going to have to retake the written exam. She passed, or they passed their writtens, and then we'll have to retake their oral practical. And so I think as much information that we can get out there is just a kind of a bullet on the websites to reassure these individuals that they pass the written, that we're not going to make them take another written after the transition, that they will still just have to reset for their orals. And I think that's because that transition from October 3rd to the exam date, which traditionally we've had is early December, either last weekend in November, first weekend in December, normally the first week in December, is a lot of things happening fast, and we can't just wait till that point in time to get here. So I want to make sure that we are trying to get some information out there. Another thing that, Stuart's been working on as far as their website issue was hacked, and so some of their application issues, and so we did put out a bullet to TSATA and through the SWATA to let people know that to contact him directly until that website gets up. And common sense tells me, that we are a program going out. I know the programs that are staying will probably going to be the priority in getting that information back up. But anyway, so I know we're working through some processes there as well. So I would just like for you and Stuart to kind of work together, and let's get some information on for these people to reassure them that, we're going to transition and we're working with you through that. So.
By the way, update on the website. It looks like the athletic trainer website might be back up soon.
Okay.
It's in line.
Okay.
It's going to be a very streamlined version, mainly because, yes, the program will be leaving Department of State Health Services, so but it will at least have application, rules, laws, list disciplinary actions, a few other,
renewals.
And
We need to get
yeah,
online
we're gonna have
renewals
those.
done.
Yeah, we're gonna have all those links on there. The general links. It just won't have a lot of the other stuff that was on the previous website, but it is in line. We've started all the professional licensing certification websites were down. They're going back up little by little. They started with the mental health boards because, again, A, those are the biggest, B, those are the ones that are staying, and C, those are usually the most complicated, speaking as the LCDC program director. And then we're starting to put up a few more as it comes, and it's mainly just a matter of getting it up to the webmasters for DSHS, and of course you can imagine as wide and varied as DSHS is, but I have been told it's going to happen soon, so cross your fingers. As far as the exam stats, yes, the exam stats will be available. We'll make sure that all the data is complete, and it will simply be handed off, and TDLR can make sure that the ones that need to take one part of the exam or both parts of the exams, they know which ones, and the candidates know as well. They've been, as I said, they've been notified already, so that data is actually up to date and raring to go.
What is going to be our deadline? I don't have that in front of me. Our deadline for application for that exam?
Well, that's going to depend on when we can schedule that next exam. As you said, traditionally, the exam around that time is first weekend in December, which usually means registration is 30 days prior, which means applications, we try to make it either 45 to 60 days prior to that date so that they have time to get the exam registration form and get it back to whether it's us or TDLR with the fee and site choice and what have you. we will work with the examination staff at TDLR to make sure, whenever that gets scheduled, that we make sure those timelines are in place so that these people can get scheduled and hopefully get through the exam.
And I know, we talked about, we have a goal of, that we're going to restructure a little bit as far as into a testing center and things like that. But do you feel like that we can accommodate these folks either in a like method or something like that the 1st of December?
Rebecca Armas, Education Examination. Yes, we have practical sites throughout the state. We have 8 of them. I actually observed the practical examination administration for this in Houston.
Okay.
I sat in and I actually observed,
Right.
and I observed 3 different administrations. And, it's just a matter of getting the logistics down, but that was the purpose of this, for one, me observing this examination, and 2, for the exam review process to start in July, because we're going to get with the subject matter experts and discuss where you want this exam to go and how we're going to administer it and everything that's needed so that we can stick to the traditional December, end of November, early December, because we know it coincides with graduations.
Correct.
And, folks getting jobs as soon as, they're licensed. So we don't want to disrupt that. We want to keep it all as traditional as far as the exam dates as possible. Now, with the passing of the written examinations that, this board has created to where you want the written passed first, and then the written's going to be computer-based. We're going to make it computer-based so where the candidates at their leisure can go into a PSI testing facility and take the written examination. So we're working on making it, not as a shock to everyone as possible. We're keeping in mind the candidates, because the worst thing is to have exam anxiety and then not knowing who's going to administer your exam and when they're going to have this examination is even worse. So we're trying to make this as painless as possible. Another thing that I would suggest is that everyone sign up for the .gov delivery with TDLR, because as soon as we know something, we're going to put that out there in a .gov delivery email. It's going to
Okay.
come out there, whether it be examination changes or any type of changes with TDLR and the athletic training program to begin with is all going to be delivered on this.
Okay.
And that's how we're going to get the word out.
Stuart, would you make sure we're noted in that and our applications and things? Okay, perfect.
So that is, but yes, we understand that there's, huge concern on how this is going to be administered. Another thing we're working on is the jurisprudence exam, is trying to make it as, we're going to leave it for now. We're going to work on streamlining it and making it easier for these candidates to, maybe even just take it on our site. There's little things that we're working on, but, we're going to slowly ease into this process. We're not going to make a drastic change to where it shocks the system of the candidates.
What is your goal date to have the exam at the PSI sites?
We would have to discuss that with PSI to see how quick they can, but I would kind of like to keep it in December. I
Okay.
mean, that's my own personal goal.
So I didn't know if we could make that as a November 1 goal so that people could take it in that November time and then be able to get to a practical site for the
As far as
December exam.
written, the written
The
examination.
written exam.
The written examination, we can look into getting that, as quick as possible.
Okay.
That's part of why we're getting this exam review process started, because that is our goal. We understand that October 1, this is ours.
Right.
And we want them to have the flexibility to be able to take this examination. So we need to talk about how we get the eligibility sent over, because everything is done electronically with us. And they'll actually be able to get their results walking out the door, is our goal, to
Okay.
the written exam.
I have a question for Stuart. Are the results of the exam going to be put on the athletic trainer website?
You mean this past one?
Yeah,
You mean as far as the stats?
yeah.
As soon as we can get them compiled.
And
That's-
it'll show the schools? I mean, didn't we
We
agree
can,
that-
yes, if I remember
Wow.
correctly, we had talked
Show-
about that in the past, and we'll make sure it's by school, mainly by school, because that's probably the one that the public is probably interested in the most. Again, with whatever website we have, we'll try to make sure that gets up there best we can.
To
Okay.
kind of just educate, what we wanted to do is make it, we didn't want to go and, harangue the schools, but we wanted to make it public so that you know, some young kid is looking at schools and go, man, their graduation, I mean, their success rate on the exam is horrible. I'm not sure I want to go there. And so we want to make sure that that's made public.
And I don't know, Ms. Winston, you may have to direct me on this. As far as evaluating continuing ed courses, that would be if a group of individuals, athletic trainers, whomever, wanted to create a course that did not go through national BOC registry for continuing education, and they sent that to us, what division oversees that? Is that education, or is that under compliance?
I see Rebecca
That would be
nodding
the
into.
Education Examination Division.
Yeah.
Okay,
That
good.
would
So
come
since
through
you're
us.
sitting at the table, that's perfect. I have been approached by the ED at TSATA, basically volunteering them to, let me back up. BOC, if you want, BOC is the certifying agency of the National Athletic Trainers Association. If you want to conduct a course and have BOC hours accredited, you apply to them and receive a number. Your course is evaluated. There's various steps to go through, which are all listed on their site. I'm not going to ad nauseum go through all of those. But anyway, there is a procedure to go through, and then you're given a recognized number. And then your attendees are also given that number, and when they turn in their continuing education, that number is assigned back to that course, okay? There is also another level of education which the NATA went to about 4 years ago. It's called EBP, Evidence-Based Practice. It is a higher level of requirements to go through to get those. But needless to say, we want to, TSATA has volunteered to put together a group of individuals to evaluate courses and be able to quote-unquote certify those courses. And so when I was contacted about this, were we interested in it, I said, well, I need to bring it to the TDLR board meeting and have that discussed here. Now, I throw that open to the board and determine, is that something that we want? Is that something even that TDLR would like? You know, what is going to be your procedures for being able to certify a course for state use only, but to grant continuing education units for someone that's not, or an entity that's not interested in getting that through BOC?
Well, currently, we do have a continuing education evaluation process.
Okay.
We have, our staff are the folks that approve the examinations, or, I'm sorry, the continuing education courses. They go through, and whether it be for electricians, air conditioning, cosmetology, barbering, they go through the course, make sure that it is everything to what the statute has been laid out for, and make sure that everything is being covered.
Okay.
And they approve them there, we approve them in-house.
Okay.
There isn't an outside entity that approves the continuing education courses. They do have to be registered with TDLR, pay the registration fee, and then they have a separate course fee. So for each course that they're going to offer, they would submit a course fee and their material for the staff here to review.
Do you know what those costs are?
Offhand, one moment.
So moving forward, let's say my group in San Antonio wants to put on a course for continuing education for athletic trainers in San Antonio. We could apply to TDLR,
To be a
Pay-
registered provider, yes.
pay the fee. Y'all would review the course and make us certified, so that when those athletic trainers come, they're getting 10 hours of true CEU. It doesn't have to be BOC.
It would be you'd be an approved provider with TDLR.
Gotcha.
And Mary Winston, and it would be acknowledged by TDLR in the state of Texas. As Rebecca was telling us, and I see we have more E&E lining up to speak if we need them to. We have a process for several of the programs, many of which Rebecca has named. This TSATA would submit into the process and would be incorporated into the process of getting and being an approved provider of
Okay.
continuing education.
Okay.
Will the BOC have to do that then?
The BOC, how are we doing the BOC? We're not doing BOC approval. So BOC courses aren't necessarily, and correct me if I'm wrong, TDLR registered courses. It's a separate entity.
Because we're a national entity.
But they're
They-
accepted.
It's accepted, it's a
So I
national.
mean, if you have the BOC.
Right.
If you have the BOC provider number, then it is accepted.
It's accepted,
So-
but they don't have to go through the same program
Correct.
because
Then could
they're national.
TSATA do the same thing
With TDLR?
as the BOC does, being an outside entity, approve hours? I believe it's in the statutes that says that a national, regional, state, because I brought this up at a previous meeting, that they were all eligible to approve hours for continuing education.
If it's on the same realm, and I don't want to speak for E&E, if it's the same as BOC or the same type of process, have we talked about that yet? Has Ray talked about that yet? That'll be something that we would bring up with Ray Pizarro. And if it's on the same vein as BOC, I don't know how it would be different, but let me talk to Ray about it. He's out of town, and let these ladies speak with him to make sure we get you an answer on that, Red. But if it's the same thing, and you're right, we know what the rules say.
Yeah, we'll have to just, the Kim went with education examination, we'll have to go by whatever's laid out in the statute and the rules. The question is as far as fees, it's a $200 provider registration, renewed annually, and then each course is $100. That's valid for 1 year, and then that course number expires, and then they would resubmit that material again, or new material, and we would issue another course number.
So you're looking at, if the example that Dr. Smith gave, he would be looking at least the initial would be a $300 fee, and then $100 each year that he would want to subsequently teach that course.
Yes,
Is that
and
correct?
the provider renewal as well as $200. So he would be renewing his
So every
provider
year is
registration yearly.
So every year is 300?
No less than 300 a year.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
And what's the how quickly do you need to, so we put this course on every year in January.
Mhm.
So how quickly would we need to get it to you?
It all depends really on what we have going on. The sooner we can get it in-house, the better off you'll be. For us to
Couple
get it,
months?
yeah, I would prefer 60 days, a
Okay.
couple months to get it to us. Because we're receiving courses also for 12 other programs. So we're having to get all those reviewed as such. And what takes us the longest is an online course, because we actually take that course. But if it's a classroom, it goes a little quicker. So the rules did change a couple of years ago to where every provider that wanted to offer a course had to pay for every program they wanted to offer a course for. So now it's an overarching provider registration, meaning if somebody wants to be an athletic or provider for athletic trainers, they could also later come in and be a CE provider for air conditioning and such. So
And is there a standard form, or you just send in the,
no, we have forms available on the website. So there would be a special page for athletic trainers on continuing education. Your forms would be out there. They would download those, fill them out, and send them in with the fees and the material for review.
Okay. Any other questions regarding that? Okay.
Okay?
They ask all my questions.
Okay. And we can perhaps put this on an agenda for another
Yeah,
time?
definitely.
Maybe, and can really get into detail. Or your work groups could probably bring this up as well.
With our meeting coming up in July, and I'm asking because I understand the transition, and would there be any opportunity to have information available to our membership, to the membership out there about the transitioning examination stuff? Because I imagine there will be questions asked about that at that meeting. And if there was, like we're talking about doing the exam in November and then being able to come back in December for the practical
Sure.
or the sit-down one, will it, do you think it's possible to have some information lined out by the 21st or whatever that date is?
Well,
in
when
July?
either myself or Ray will be attending that conference, so we'll be able to provide some type of information, guidance as far as where we are with the preparations of the transition, to kind of put them all at ease, and encourage them again to subscribe to the .gov delivery. But definitely, one of us will be there to answer any questions that they may have regarding this, because, I know it's very concerning, but we are working diligently to try to get this
Well,
taken
like I said,
care
I
of.
can imagine as, if I were at the collegiate setting and fixing to put students out,
Mhm.
that, there's confusion about when they're gonna be able to get licensed, and like we talked about, they're gonna graduate in December, and they'd
Right.
like to be able to get a job, and,
Right.
you know.
And we don't want to make it difficult for them. That's not
Oh,
what we're,
sure.
so we're working really hard to make sure that we keep it as close to what they were used to as possible.
Well, the question I have is there going to be a written exam in December?
Well, ideally, what we'd like to do is to make it to where the written exam, they can go into PSI. As long as they have an eligibility, they can take it as many times as they want. I cautiously optimistic, would like to be ready for that October deadline when we take over. So anybody needing to take that written exam, whether it be a retake or, an initial written exam, they can start going into any PSI location that is near them and start taking this exam. Now, again, I speak cautiously, but ideally that's the goal, so that when we get ready to start having these practical administrations at our various sites, they've already had that written examination, and they just walk in, take their practical, and they can go.
I mean, so you didn't really answer my question. I mean, the goal is that there will only be a practical exam in December.
Right.
Because everybody would have gone to the
PSI
PSI
locations.
sites.
Right,
They walk out the door
Mhm.
and they know whether or not they passed or failed.
for the written exam.
For the written.
For a written exam.
Perfect, okay, thank you.
Right. Good, perfect. I mean, we share the same goals. I think that
Yeah.
October 3rd is an optimal, that's the goal that we have.
Of course,
And
of
so,
course.
perfect,
Yeah.
okay. And I think, as we go forward, you have to have some form of, I don't know, I'm using the term deadline or something. There's,
Mm-hmm.
we can't have 50 people walk in on Friday before a practical being given on Saturday or Sunday and then we're not prepared for some of those sites or where they're going. So I think there's got to be, or there has to be, some form of deadline to
Right.
say you've taken your written and passed it by that point in time, and we know how many are going where, so that we're prepared
Sure.
for
Do you think
that.
there will
So-
be assignment for the practical aspect? Okay, I passed my test. We set a 2-week deadline prior to the practical exam. Will there be an assignment sent out? Okay, you're to go to the Houston site or wherever.
What
it's
we're
set up.
trying to do is make it a little easier on the candidate. If they live in Houston, then they would take it in Houston, but let's just say they lived, in Austin. They could actually take it in Austin and not have to drive to San Antonio, because we have a practical site here in Austin. We're trying to make it as convenient for the candidates, making it a little more broad for them. I understand the logistics is still something that we're working on, but a lot of stuff has already started in the back end. PSI already has been given all of the examination material that they are prepping, so that, these deadlines aren't completely unrealistic. They understand what we expect from them. That's why they are our chosen exam vendor. They've won the contract with us, because they know what we expect.
One of the things I want to make sure we establish is that and I'm okay for having many practical sites as long as we have people, athletic trainers that have been a part of the practical examination before.
Right.
There to have oversight and to know it's being directed appropriately. So
And that's
so-
exactly what we're using. We're using raters, test site administrators. I mean, everybody that has had a hand in this exam is going to be used. It's not something we're
Okay.
just
Perfect.
pulling it out. Everybody that has worked on this exam prior will have, a hand in this, as long as they are willing to assist.
Great. Okay.
So I have a question.
Mhm.
I'll be coming in July to
Mhm.
help with the PSI. And so they already have the course materials, or they already have the questions.
Mhm.
We, as the group, we don't need to bring questions for them to use, right?
You mean as far as writing new questions
Right,
for the
absolutely.
examination?
We don't
That'll
need
be
to-
something that'll be asked perhaps later.
Okay.
What we want to do now is just look at what we have in the pool now. Now, if
Good.
there's something that you've seen or feel that maybe needs to be brought, you can bring those items with you.
Okay.
But right now, we're just trying to go through it and make sure that, that the items are referenced properly, that they're in the right form, because they're, it's going from paper and pencil to a computer-based exam.
Okay. And I think that this line of questioning that you're getting right now is just going to prepare you for when you're at SWATA.
Sure,
Because
sure.
I feel like that, especially, the college, you have the seniors coming in, they're wanting to take that for December, and there's going to be lots of rapid-fire questions at you.
course,
And
of
so,
course.
just be prepared.
And since you are coming, I may try to get, because they actually do have a student forum
Oh, okay.
education, and so
Okay.
I may
Yeah.
pull you out.
Okay.
Knowing that information, so maybe outside, I think, obviously, the agency has my contact information, but maybe just send me your contact information, so as I get a program, I may say, okay, this would be a perfect place for you to show up and be able to address some of those areas, maybe even in another format, since you're coming,
Certainly.
okay?
Okay.
And certainly, I think that this board acknowledges the fact that what y'all are doing is benefiting our stakeholders. I mean, the ability to go into a computer place and take your written at your leisure, and knowing whether or not you pass it is a great, in my opinion, a great benefit to our athletic trainers.
I agree.
And increasing the number of practical sites, I think, is also going to be a huge benefit. So that's a step up. And that's-
Could it even be the step of, I mean, okay, you've successfully passed, and while they're sitting there, they could literally go ahead and sign up for a location on a specific date, so that, literally they've signed up at that point in time, if they so chose.
What they would do is, at the testing facility, they just administer the exams there. So if they walked out the door and they have, their pass notice, if you've made it to where they have to pass that written, so then when the exam results are electronically sent to us, so it would give them about 24 to 48-hour
Okay.
window for the pass results to show up on our end. Once they are on our end, then another eligibility for the practical exam will be sent over.
Perfect. Okay.
And then from there, they'll be able to go online and schedule.
Okay, and then
But
that's where
that's
you could
great.
give them that deadline, say, you have this deadline to make the next practical exam, you have X date that's established that you must come online and sign up for. Okay, perfect.
That's great that there's a, what did you say, 48-hour turnaround of that. That is.
Because everything's
That
sent over to
that's
us
huge, yeah.
electronically.
Because it decreases their stress level. And I know because I'll have 20 of them looking at me at Texas State saying, when am I going to be able to take it? They'll get to it 48 hours, so that's good. Yeah.
Well, barring any computer issues.
Yeah. The computer doesn't crash, knock on wood.
Okay,
It works really well.
any other questions, comments, issues there? Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks, Stuart. Great
Great,
talk.
great.
Okay, moving on to item F, discussion, possible action of approval of criminal conviction guidelines.
Mr. Brian Francis has entered the room. I didn't know if he wanted to be acknowledged or just
Well,
hide in the
I
background.
kept waiting for trumpets to sound, but obviously his staff, even though he is gonna be the new ED, they didn't get that memo.
Yep. We didn't bow. I
There
do
was a
want
few misses.
I want to pause and I want to thank Stephen for letting us know that, Mr. Ware, you were an athletic trainer when you were a baby. In 1974, your name was on that list. So, Stuart, thank
At
you.
least my license number has 4 digits. We started with 101.
Okay,
So that
okay.
tells you that I'm a little ways. 100, I'm sorry, so,
And that was Paul, too, right?
yeah, I think Paul Zeke was the 100, so,
You still alive?
yes.
Yes.
I'm glad you didn't say I was in the book, but I think
Actually, David was an athletic trainer when he was an embryo.
Embryo. And Red has joined, Red was in the book also, Stuart? Okay. Well, we have a lot of knowledge in this room.
Caveman.
No, I don't think so. Good morning. Mr. Chairman, Advisory Board members, I'm Christina Kaiser. I'm the Director of the Enforcement Division here at TDLR. With me is Chris Russey. His official title is Research and Analytics Specialist for the Enforcement Division. He is the person who does most of the actual hard work on development of the criminal conviction guidelines and various other policies that guide the work of the Enforcement Division. On this agenda item, you have in front of you a draft of criminal conviction guidelines for the athletic trainers program. The guidelines are used by the agency in determining the types of criminal convictions that will possibly render a person ineligible to hold a license. I say possibly because as we talk about this, you'll come to understand that this is a very case-by-case analysis that we engage in that's very specific to each applicant. We don't have any drop dead. You're automatically out the door if you have this type of a crime. The guidelines that are in front of you were developed by the enforcement work group of this advisory board in consultation with various agency staff, including myself, Chris, and the two lawyers who will work the criminal background cases if there are any, and those are Bob Rennick and Ken Sharp. That's these two gentlemen right here in the second row. The work group helped us to understand the settings in which athletic trainers work, the types of clients they serve, and also the nature of their contact with those clients. We also had some very heavy conversations about just what kinds of crimes should be a possible basis for denying someone a license and why. Because the guidelines have to reflect not only the types of crimes, but also why we think they're a possible basis to deny or revoke someone's license. The work group met one time by conference call on March 16th, and we exchanged emails afterward to finalize the draft that's in front of you today. The work group members from this advisory board are Daryl Gaines and Dr. David Schmidt. I want to thank you both for all of your input and assistance. At the end of this meeting, we will be asking that you recommend approval of these criminal conviction guidelines by our commission. I'd like to start by explaining the agency's process for criminal background checks a little bit, just to kind of put you in the frame and help you understand the context in which these guidelines are used. Any individual who applies for a license with TDLR is subject to a criminal background check. And in various statutes, some of those background checks are done through DPS, the Department of Public Safety, so it's just a statewide check. Others are done at the national level through the use of fingerprints. The request for a person's criminal history is sent to the relevant authority by our licensing division when the person applies. When the results of the criminal background check come back, they are returned to our licensing division, Dee Dee's group, who you heard from earlier. Dee Dee's group does the first screening of a person's criminal history, and they use these criminal conviction guidelines to review that person's criminal history. If they don't see any crime that is reflected in the criminal conviction guidelines, then they clear that person for licensing, and that person gets on down the road, and enforcement never has to see it. If licensing finds a conviction or a deferred adjudication that is reflected within our guidelines, then they will refer that case over to us, to the enforcement division. And one of these two lawyers will then do a second screening, immediately screening of that person's criminal convictions with reference to these guidelines. So these are more than just a piece of paper that we publish to the world for feel-good purposes. These are actually used every day by people in the agency. The lawyers, when they do the second screening, are they still have the discretion to clear someone for licensing. If there may be crimes that fall within the guidelines, but they're not serious, or they happened a long time ago, or we are aware of circumstances that reflect, enough time has passed and the person has been a contributing member of society or whatever, they can still go ahead and clear the person. If they think we might want to deny someone's license, then they will open a case for investigation, and our investigators will gather whatever information the lawyer asks for. Typically that includes court records reflecting the conviction or the deferred adjudication. Police records are sometimes asked for, contacts with the applicant, contacts with probation officers or parole officers. Applicants have the opportunity during the investigation to submit letters of recommendation if they want to do that from, employers, from people in the community who are aware of their, how they're living their life, essentially. At the end of the investigation, then the lawyer is the one who makes the final decision on behalf of the agency whether we're going to seek to deny the person's license or revoke it. If the lawyer chooses to deny the license, that's not the end of the analysis, however. That's just actually the beginning, because the applicant has, if we issue a letter proposing to deny someone's license, the applicant then has a full due process available to him. He has the opportunity to request a hearing. That's held before the State Office of Administrative Hearings, and then the ultimate decision on the case at the agency level is made by our commission, the 7-member commission who's the governing body for our agency. After the commission rules on someone's application, the person has the opportunity for further judicial review in district court if they choose to do that. So I think that's one of the things I want to make sure that you're really clear on is, I talk a lot about in the agency how we do things, but the decision by my people is not the end at all. There's full due process available and many opportunities for applicants to affect the outcome of the process by participating. I look at the criminal conviction guidelines as a sort of policy that helps us to bring the law down to the ground and apply it to your specific industry. There are several different laws that give us authority to deny someone a license or revoke a license that they already have based on their criminal history. The most general authority that we rely on most of the time is in Chapter 53 of the Occupations Code. This is a law that applies to all licensing agencies, with a few exceptions, and provides general authority to deny licenses based on criminal history. The relevant provision is Section 53.021A, and it says that the agency may suspend, revoke, or deny a license to a person who has been convicted of, and then there are 4 categories of things listed. The first category is the most important one, and this is the one that I'm going to talk about several times today. Crimes that directly relate to the duties and responsibilities of the licensed occupation. That directly relates language is hugely important. That's the whole reason we're here today, because the guidelines are intended to reflect what we believe as an organization, what crimes are directly related to this occupation. Does that kind of make sense? So under that section saying that the agency may revoke or deny a license, that's one of the categories. That's the one we rely on most often. The other categories are, in our experience, the other categories are usually included in the directly relates analysis. They are things like crimes that were committed within or less than 5 years before the date of the application, crimes listed in Section 3G, Article 4212 of the Code of Criminal Procedure. These are really bad crimes. These are things like murder, capital murder, indecency with a child, aggravated kidnapping, etc. And the 4th category are sexually violent offenses as defined in the Code of Criminal Procedure. And these are also, again, really bad things. Indecency with a child, sexual assault, sexual performance by a child, etc. So our experience has shown us that, even though the legislature set out those 2 categories and they said these crimes are so bad that you don't even have to prove these are directly related to the occupation, you can deny or revoke just based on those. Our experience has shown that we often have concluded that those crimes are directly related. Those are the types of crimes that we're trying to exclude people from. If people have those convictions, we're trying to exclude those people from industries, and I think the discussion with this work group was very similar. There's also a provision in your statute, in the statute for athletic trainers, which is Chapter 451 of the Occupations Code, that provides some additional authority relating to criminal convictions. It states that the agency may deny a license, so again, a case-by-case analysis, and shall take some form of action against someone who's already licensed if that person has been convicted of a misdemeanor involving moral turpitude or a felony. Regarding the person who's already licensed, the statute says the agency shall do something. There are 4 options of what the agency may do. The agency may reprimand the person, suspend the license, revoke the license, or refuse to renew the license. That's a broad range of stuff. So there as well, even though the language says shall, we still need guidance as to where the person falls along that spectrum, because a reprimand is essentially a written, publicized slap on the hand, all the way to revoking or refusing to renew the license. So these guidelines will be very helpful in the context of applying that law to help us figure out where the person should fall in that spectrum. Does that kind of make sense? Okay. And similarly, the language misdemeanor involving moral turpitude or a felony, that's very broad as well. That's wide open. That can include so many things. Moral turpitude is a very imprecise concept. It has been interpreted in various ways by various courts for very many years, to the point almost that it means whatever you think it means. So here, the criminal conviction guidelines will be much more precise. And when we publish these to the world, people who are thinking about entering the industry will have a very good sense of, uh-oh, if I have this type of crime, it might be a problem. So remember I told you a moment ago the directly relates language was really important. This is the reason we've created these criminal conviction guidelines. They are published as a policy of the agency, and they are applied, like I said, in our licensing division by the enforcement division, and they are also applied by the decision makers in our contested cases when the case goes to the State Office of Administrative Hearings, and then ultimately when it's heard by our commission for final decision. They are applying the criminal conviction guidelines in making decisions about these cases. So we need them for that reason. We also need them for one very practical reason. There's a provision in Chapter 53 that requires us to adopt them. So we're going to comply with that law, hopefully, here today. Again, I want to stress that these guidelines were developed with a lot of input from the 2 board members who served on the enforcement work group, and I want to thank them. I'd like to just kind of walk through the guidelines now. And when you look over the guidelines, you'll see that crimes are described in categories. Through trial and error, we have figured out that if we tried to make an exhaustive list of every possible crime, it would be a fool's errand, because from state to state, from county to county, from one court to another within the same county, crimes are described in the court documents using very different words. So we have learned that describing them in terms of categories is a much more helpful way to create this document. Underneath each category, you'll see some reasons listed. These are the reasons, as I said, why we believe each category of crime is directly related to this occupation. In other words, these are the reasons why we think someone's license probably or may need to be denied or revoked if they have this kind of crime. So a couple of common themes you're going to see in here. I'm going to try to not repeat the reasons that are the same under every category. The first reason listed, let's just look at the first category, crimes against the person such as homicide, kidnapping, and assault. The first one listed there, licensees physically interact with adults and children in an athletic trainer/client role. Individuals with crimes of this nature would pose a potential danger to the clients. That's kind of like the most simple of all reasons. We've listed that under every single one of these, I'm pretty sure, as the first reason. So I'm not going to belabor that every time, but that's kind of a recurring thought process regarding all these categories of crimes. Similarly, the third reason, reflecting the opportunity to engage in further criminal conduct of that nature, is another recurring theme that you're going to see in here often. So under the first category, number one is the setting, the athletic trainer client role. Number two is licensees are in a relationship of trust with their clients. And the third one is that the occupation involves close proximity and often physical contact with clients, sometimes in a private setting. So that provides the opportunity to engage in further similar conduct. So you kind of get a feel for the kinds of reasons that we are relying on here. Second category, crimes involving prohibited sexual conduct. We have those same ones that we already talked about on number 1, the athletic trainer-client role, the relationship of trust, and also the opportunity to engage in further similar conduct. We added a couple of more reasons here, and this is where the work group members were very helpful for us. A majority of athletic trainers can and do have contact with minors in the performance of their duties. So clearly someone who has a history of sex crimes would be of concern in that type of a setting. The occupation involves regular close proximity to and regular physical contact with clients, often in a private setting. And the reason number 5 was discussed quite a lot at the work group level. The interaction between an athletic trainer and the client sometimes lasts for extended periods of time, and bonds of friendship sometimes develop. So that's just another element that makes sex crimes disturbing. Crimes involving children as victims. This one includes many of the same reasons we just talked about, the majority of athletic trainers having contact with minors, the relationship of trust, the interaction sometimes lasting for extended period of time, and friendship developing. Crimes against property, such as theft or burglary. This was one that we talked about for quite a while before we decided to even include it in here. When people are interacting, when athletic trainers are interacting with their clients, they will have access to the property of their clients. And so they would pose a potential danger. If they're a person with a history of theft, they would pose a potential danger to that person's property. Sort of a similar thought process on crimes involving fraud and deceptive trade practice. A couple of additional pieces of information that the work group members shared with us. Licensees are sometimes involved in the billing of clients and others, such as school districts, hospitals, and clinics. They're also sometimes involved in the filing of insurance claims. We've reflected that there in number 3 and 4. And in number 5, licensees may be in a position to advertise or otherwise make representations about services, products, insurance benefits, and the like. So that provides the overall theme of all of this is that the profession of athletic trainers provides many opportunities for a person to commit fraud type behavior. On the last page, we have two categories that have to do with drugs and substances. The first I will loosely refer to as the drug dealer category, and the second is crimes involving being under the influence of alcohol or drugs. And we talked about these for a while before we figured out that was a good way to split them apart because they're both related to drugs, but the reasons that underlie their connection with the industry are a little bit different. The first category, crimes involving possession with intent to deliver, possession with intent to distribute, or actual delivery, distribution, or manufacture of drugs. I would like to recommend one change. We've used the term illegal drugs. I would like to remove the word illegal because if this is a crime, then what type of drug it is doesn't matter. You know, when you hear illegal drugs, you think of things that are obviously illegal, like meth. But this could also be prescription drugs. And I would hate for the word illegal. It was my idea to put in the word illegal, and then I thought better of it afterward, and I thought, well, that's kind of dumb. So if you do recommend approving these guidelines today, I would recommend that you remove that one word.
Just take it out completely?
Yes, and so it would just say manufacture of drugs at the end of that. Some of the reasons listed under this category are the same. The potential danger to clients, can and do have contact with minors, the relationship of trust, the close proximity and physical contact, which provides the opportunity to engage in drug dealing, also the relationship lasting for extended periods of time. We added a reason here that we thought was kind of unique to the drug dealing type scenario. Clients who use pain medications and other medications are potentially vulnerable to someone who may wish to illegally sell or otherwise distribute drugs, or to enlist the aid of a client in obtaining drugs for them.
I want to remove illegally there as well.
Did we put that?
It who may wish to illegally sell or otherwise distribute drugs.
We can. I don't think it's quite as critical here, but we can remove it.
I mean, I'm just asking.
Yeah.
Well, you can't, an athletic trainer can't legally sell drugs, period, so.
Oh, okay. Number 7 is another reason that we decided to add after learning a little bit more about the industry. Licensees have, at times, will have access to controlled substances at treatment locations. So someone with a history of drug dealing might, be in a position to take drugs, from the facility and then try to sell them. So we had a lot of discussion there. And then finally, crimes involving being under the influence of alcohol and drugs. We thought number 3 was the one reason that's kind of unique to this category. Persons with this type of criminal history could potentially have alcohol or drugs in their systems while they're acting as an athletic trainer, which could pose a danger to the client or to other people involved in the training.
Let me back up just real quick. So
Yes, sir.
Dr. Smith, you brought up a point there on number 6, and let me make sure I'm not going down the wrong pathway here. But if you say, if you change that word illegally to legally, an individual that pursues another profession as a pharmaceutical salesperson, then technically they could still be a licensed athletic trainer, but then truly sell legal medications, couldn't it?
No, they don't sell medications. If you're a sales rep, you're going to a doctor's office and
Correct. But is
talking to them about the drugs, but you're not selling the drugs. I think you should leave in 6, you should leave illegally there.
I agree. I don't
Okay.
think you want to change that to legally.
Okay.
That's my point.
Yeah.
So keep the word illegally.
Correct.
Okay. Are you okay with removing the word illegal in the top part where I suggested? Okay. That concludes my run-through of the criminal conviction guidelines. I'm happy to answer any questions. Ultimately, I'm asking that you vote today to recommend that the commission approve these guidelines so that they may be published and used when we take over licensing for this industry.
As far as the punishments that go with that, is that outlined here?
Well, these guidelines are used in determining whether to deny someone a license.
Okay.
Right, this doesn't have to do with administrative penalties or other sanctions upon a license.
That's coming later.
Yes.
Okay.
So can I make a motion now?
Can I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
In your criminal history report, how far back do you go?
When we initially receive an application, the first time a person applies, we look back at their history as far back as it goes.
Okay.
And then each time they renew, we will look back to anything that's happened since the last time they applied with us.
Good, thank you.
Let me ask you a question. I'm sorry, Doc. On your criminal history investigation, are we looking, is it our initial plan to just look like through the DPS database for all candidates, regardless of where they come from?
I believe these are DPS searches. I don't recall anything in this statute or rules about fingerprint checks.
The reason I ask is because with the change in, that a BOC candidate could come in from anywhere. Wouldn't
Right.
necessarily be a Texas individual, and therefore wouldn't be in the DPS at all and would come up clear. Whereas if they're from Vermont, they may be a trash bag up there, and we
Right.
wouldn't know until after the fact. Now, I guess that's relative to the BOC's vetting process prior to allowing them certification, and it's been too long since I did that process.
Yeah, I agree with what Red stated. Obviously, the BOC records need to have been evaluated as well as, I think, a national database evaluated as well from all out-of-state applicants.
That's exactly what that was the question I was just fixing to ask, is how do you treat BOC people from outside the state? And in my opinion, they should be treated differently, because there's, you know, they're obviously from all over the country, and I think you would need a national database versus just DPS.
In order to perform the fingerprint check that would do a national background check, we would need to have authority in the statute to do that. Your statute does not reflect that. I am not aware of what type of criminal background checks are being done at the current agency.
Stuart, would you address the mic, and then that way we have it on record?
Stuart Meyer, Department of State Health Services. Right now, the way the athletic trainer statute's written, we can only do DPS through the Department of Public Safety for criminal history searches and its name and date of birth. In order to perform a check through the FBI, we have to have fingerprints. In order to have fingerprints, has to be in the statute that the agency can collect fingerprints. This the athletic trainer licensing does not have that. In fact, we only have 4 of our licensing programs within professional licensing that does that, including one that I run, Licensed Chemical Dependency Counselors. That's been in place since 2002. As far as licensing goes, if they've been licensed in another state, we do, when they submit an application, they have to submit a verification of that license, and that verification will list whether or not that license has been disciplined in that state. And if there is a disciplinary action from another state, we ask for records. Now, again, luckily, this industry is, they behave pretty well. It is very rare that we even have anything. I haven't seen anything, let's put it this way, I haven't seen anything as far as action against an out-of-state license, as well as the BOC, and we also verify BOC as well. But as far as criminal history, again, in order to do a FBI check, we have to have fingerprints, and the statute doesn't allow that right now.
So what does the BOC do when they provide, when I become an ATC?
Mm-hmm.
I'm at Arizona State.
Right.
I go through their athletic training program. I take my BOC exam, and I get my ATC.
Mm-hmm.
Does the BOC do any type of criminal background check?
You'd have to ask BOC.
Well, I think
That's up to them.
well, if our job is
Based-
to protect the public,
Right. But
and our statutes have changed, because now we allow BOC certified athletic trainers to come from all over the country. If our job is to protect the public, I think we need to at least visit
Right.
this a little bit more
Right.
aggressively, rather than, because I could be a child molester from Arizona State and come to Texas.
and that's where the board certification, that is and I'm trying to find the word. It's it's not the board certification doesn't have legal authority in any state. It's up to that state as to how they're going to regulate athletic training. The states that do have licensure, like Texas, like Louisiana, like Oklahoma, those states will perform their background checks, because they're the ones that grant the legal authority to practice athletic training in that state, not the BOC. Even the states where it's a certification or even registration, like Hawaii is registration. But still, it's up to that state to do checks, because it's that state that says, yes, you can practice athletic training in our state. It's not up to the BOC. The BOC, all they do is say, yes, you are qualified by our standards to be called an athletic trainer.
I understand that.
Okay, how, just to, I always go back to in comparisons, because we're not the only entity out there that have these same concerns. So, how is TMA handling? How is the PT organization handling? How is OTs handling that? You know, what are we, you know, I would like to know, you know, kind of where we align in that same, within that same area.
I think the question you're asking is ultimately a question about what is included in their statute, and that is beyond the pale of this group or even our commission to change. That would be a decision for the legislature to make. If the legislature...
No, I'm just asking what are their standards. I'm not asking us to change their standards. I'm just as a comparison, you know, as if you were to come in here as a physical therapist, as an example, into the state of Texas, what is their board requirements? What level of background checks are they doing? Are they doing a national check? TMA you know, if you come in from out of state as a physician, are you going through a national registry database for searches of offenses? That was my question.
Okay, and I don't know the answer to that, but we can certainly find out.
Mr. Chairman, I can tell you from personal knowledge that the radiologic technologists that are leaving the DSHS went over to the TMB, and they are now required to do fingerprinting to renew their licensure over there. And I don't see how the statute change occurred in that.
It did.
Did it?
It did. In Senate Bill 202, they made an amendment. That was actually one of the provisions for, Brian Francis, I'm sorry. One of the provisions for moving it to the medical board was to bring their criminal background checks across the board the same. But if you look at TDLR, we'll have 32 programs, probably in about a year and a half from now. And of those 32 programs, I think only 4 will have a fingerprint background check. The others do not. The others have the DPS background check. And the thing that we have, and Bill's had us looking at this in the last couple of months, but what we've seen is that when we have, when Bob and Ken have gone through and done the evaluation of somebody who had a criminal background check, and we did allow them to get a license, we've not seen them reoffend. For folks who have come in from out of state that did not, we weren't able to determine the criminal background check, we have not seen an offense of those individuals since they've been here. So statistically, the numbers and the probability are very low. Obviously, these are children, and we've got that concern. But our history, and I mean the overwhelming numbers that we've seen with 450,000 people renewing each year, we're not seeing the person who got through on the renewal or a new license having an offense in that 1 year or 2 year period when they've been here in Texas. So I agree with Stuart. When we looked at the programs that were coming over, the compliance rate and just the quality of people that are going into the athletic trainer, that's a whole different group. You guys are putting eyes on them during the process when they're going through training, and there seems to be a kind of a vetting that takes place when those individuals are coming into that industry, and we see that for our other programs as well. Nursing, medical boards, they have quite a few hits on their criminal background checks of persons coming in, but we don't see that in our industries.
And there's definitely an expense that would be incurred to the applicants if we went that route as well. Not that that should be a stop factor in
Sure.
if we thought it was necessary to do so. It is a concerning factor for me personally.
I think I would like to have that investigated and just try to look at some of the other entities that, and just kind of determine where they're standing. I mean, obviously, Red has indicated the RTs, you know, it'd be I'd like just if you guys could get us some background. You know, I mean, as society evolutionizes, there is seems to be more and more of some of these issues that are arising, and I think it's prudent by this board to always fall back on that's what we were sworn to do, and that's protect the public of Texas. So I think it's something that we continue to look at and making sure that we're doing, you know, TDLR and this board is doing all due diligence as far as in protecting our public. and at the level at which we operate, the expense level versus the revenue levels that we operate on, you know, taking an additional step, if this board so chooses to, I think would be supported. So I would just like to look at a little bit more information before we just put this one to bed.
Sure, we'll come back and do an analysis of the independent health groups and the license programs that they have. In fact, I believe there's going to be a little bit of a look at that going into this next session, but I'm not necessarily sure what the angle is coming from. I can't tell if they're wanting to increase or decrease it. The first reaction I have is it looks like they're trying to move away from doing the fingerprint criminal background checks because statistically they're not seeing what they thought they were going to see. I also know that in 2 of our programs, I think it's hearing fitters and maybe speech language pathologists, their fingerprint renewal requirements have expired. So that's going away. So we saw that added, and now they're going to be going away. So it's just something to consider.
Well, I think we just have to step back and realize that athletic trainers have a very unique position dealing with children. I mean, electricians, air conditioning guys that look at elevators and stuff like that. You know, those individuals don't bother me very much.
Electricians and air conditioning contractors should, though, because
Yeah,
they go
they
into
should.
people's homes.
That's true.
Yeah.
They go to the homes.
And some of, well,
Well,
Yeah,
and one
I'll
of the
leave it
things
at
to think about too, though, with a segment of our athletic trainers that are working with the high school kids, those schools are doing the fingerprint background check before those teachers are able to get on that campus. So you've got that aspect there. It doesn't cover the full range, and I don't want to imply that. But you have some of those safety nets that are built in there as well.
One other thing about fingerprinting, as Brian mentioned, fitting expensive hearing instruments and speech language pathology and audiology, they have it in their statute to fingerprint all applicants, as well as, again, licensed chemical dependency counselors, which is a program I run as well. The fingerprint check is a one-time deal. So that's why it's, you know, the statute makes everyone that is in that program to get fingerprinted, which include current licensees. The most prudent way to make that happen was to do it at renewal. Now they've gone through the 2-year cycle of getting all their current licensees fingerprinted, so that won't have to happen. It'll be just the new applications, and the same way with LCDCs. So I just wanted to clarify that it's a one-time once someone gets fingerprinted, because what happens is Department of Public Safety indexes those fingerprints, and then we are notified as the licensing authority if something occurs, like an arrest, something like that, or some change to their criminal history. The department is notified, usually electronically, and sometimes even hard copy, as to what that change is, again, whether it's an arrest or something, and then, of course, depending on the license and that statute, actions taken based on that.
I understand the issues with fingerprinting and how that works with the teachers. I guess I do have a concern that we're not doing a nationwide check, because typically sex offenders, one of their methods is keep moving around from state to state to avoid detection. So that's just my comment on that. I do have a question. Do these guidelines also apply to an arrest or charge, or only a conviction?
a person's license can be denied or revoked only on the basis of convictions or deferred adjudications, not on the basis of an arrest.
So if someone is arrested for child molestation, their license remains in effect?
Until they are convicted, and then we can take action based on that. One little wrinkle that's relevant to that, if the person is convicted and sent to prison based on a felony, then their license is revoked by operation of law as soon as they go to prison. By operation of law means it's automatic. That's another provision of Chapter 53 of the Occupations Code. If they get put on probation, however, it's up to us to use our process to deny or revoke the license.
May I make a motion to accept?
Any other questions before? The floor is open. Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a motion that we accept these recommendations.
Could I ask you to include removing that one word, illegal?
With, in addition to removing illegal from that second.
The
to
drug
last.
dealer category.
Right.
Second.
Okay, motion was made and seconded.
You beat me to
Any
it
other
every
discussion?
time.
All in favor indicate by saying yay.
Yeah.
Yay.
Yay.
All those against indicate by saying nay. Okay, motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and I want to compliment the subcommittee or the board members that served on that and spent the time in putting this together. I appreciate the time and efforts there. Next item is a discussion regarding our testing opportunities, which we've somewhat talked about already, I think, but unless I've missed it, there's another, we have hashed a lot of testing issues already, but maybe I'm missing something.
Are we good, Rebecca?
Okay.
I'm good.
One thing, I'd like to take this opportunity just to make note of something. I think, athletic trainers, we got into this business of, taking care of people. And we had a situation by one of our board members, and I compliment, any athletic trainers, and there's been several of us up here and been involved in these type of cases before, but one of our current board members was involved in a save of a life. Ms. Brittany Webb was involved in that, and it's had some publicity noted to where she and some public safety officers and things like that brought an unresponsive, non-breathing, pulseless student athlete back to life, and so that's an experience that stays with you for the rest of your life. Trust me. So I want to compliment Brittany on performing as she was trained to do, but being successful in that and activating that. Any comments you would like to make, Brittany, to that?
Just all the glory goes to God because we were all in the line, right? Everybody was there for a reason, and everybody did their job that they were trained to do. And the young man was friends of my own children, and we just couldn't let anything but him come back to life happen at that time. And so, but everybody who was there did exactly what they needed to do, and it worked like clockwork, and so they should be commended as well. And that's all.
Well, thank you for that, and I think obviously it's an opportunity to continue to reiterate the need for AEDs in schools, as many as possible, and trying to get the response times to AEDs as minimum as possible, and that in training of personnel, and because she had some people around her to help her that were familiar with this training as well, so the more hands on deck that you can have in those situations, the better. And so, but Brittany, thank you for sharing that, and I just wanted to make that as a public record and acknowledge your work in that.
Mr. Chairman, I'd also like to point out that during the last few years, we've had 3 officials that collapsed on the field or the diamond. And all 3 times the trainers were very instrumental in saving their lives, so thank you.
Thank you for bringing that up, Mr. Fitch. Appreciate that. Okay, I guess either Mr. Francis, if you or Ms. Winston, do you have a discussion on recommendation for a board meeting or agenda items for a board meeting?
Actually, sorry, we were discussing earlier, I think you wanted something to do with the testing to be put as an agenda item,
Okay, yes.
and we'll articulate that for Delia, making notes.
Okay.
It's related to testing. Did we want to add an agenda item for enforcement to bring back some independent research to discuss?
Yes, on backgrounds, yes.
Okay. And is there anything else that the board would like to add as an agenda item?
I think, I don't know of anything. Is that, now, in moving here, is there a possibility of having a agenda item call, from board members, 30 days out prior to a meeting, just to say if something's come up that's popped on our radar? Is that
If you
possible?
leave today and something comes to your mind, give Delia a call.
Okay.
And we will, or an email, and we'll
Okay.
put it up for discussion as an
Okay,
agenda item.
perfect.
Yes.
I know we have to post by a certain time, but I want to make sure that board always has an opportunity, because there are things that come up.
Yes, definitely,
That we want to try to make sure that it's noted that we are going to discuss it.
definitely.
Okay?
And I believe at the last meeting, you all set aside September 19th as your next meeting date.
Sure of that.
That's what I have.
I think I put that down too, but,
Is everyone still on board for that date at 9 a.m.?
Monday.
The Monday.
yep, I think that works.
Okay.
Okay? So we'll plan on September 19th to reconvene here again at 9 a.m. in this location. Any other items that we need to discuss or open up before we adjourn this meeting?
On the record, as a mom of a student athlete, I just want to say thank you. That's a concern of every parent before they head out to the football field, soccer field, basketball, what have you. I know my son's high school has a fantastic trainer, and I just want to thank you and all of you for what you do. We parents so appreciate it.
One thing that and thank you for noting that, on our roster, and it's the very last page.
Yes.
We need to add Mr. Fitch there as far as in his information. That's
Yes.
still showing as vacant. And
We
so-
actually made a note of that. Thank you for calling it to our attention. Before the meeting started, Delia made a note that we did accidentally put in the wrong roster. So we do apologize, Mr. Fitch.
Problem, thank you.
But we
And-
do have it down.
Will this entire agenda and everything be emailed to us, or was it already emailed to us?
It was already emailed. If you need to update your email, let us know, one you prefer to receive or what have you.
And outside of this, I've got some different phone office number. I'll just need to update you on that.
Wonderful,
So
thank you.
I'll do that
Let
outside
us
of
know.
this, though.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, do I have a motion for adjournment?
I motion.
Brittany, here's your opportunity. Get it on the record.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, do I have a second?
Yes.
Seconded by Mr. Gaines, Dr. Smith. Okay, any other discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you.